I'm going to give Lee a second to look this up because I don't have the notes right in front of me. In regards to the Jim Harbaugh punishment that was laid down yesterday, we've talked about this at length. However, we keep as each day passes by this week, we keep getting a little bit more. The NCAA has now handed down their punishment to Jim Harbaugh. And again, these are for offenses that were committed last season in regards to the Connor Stallions saga or controversy where he was advanced scouting opponents, which is illegal. You can't advance scout with video footage, which is what he's being accused of. I will remind people, you are in-game allowed to steal signals, steal signs. That's one of the reasons that's prompted the NCAA to adopt the coach the quarterback, where now both the offense and defense will have a designated player with the radio system, very similar to what we see in the NFL. So that should eliminate all of the sign stealing that's been going on. And it wasn't just Michigan. However, Michigan got caught. And now we've kind of seen some of the punishment from that. Lee, do you have the exact punishment that was struck down on Jim Harbaugh, who's now the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers?
Yes, this is, quote, the punishment. Harbaugh is sanctioned with a 4-year, what is called a show cause order. The NCAA said during the show cause... Huh? Show enough. Yeah. During this show cause order, the master? Harbaugh will be barred from all athletically related activities, including team travel, practice, video study, recruiting, and team meetings at any NCAA school that employed him.
Right. For 4 years. And that's more of the difficulty, right? If he came back to college football, this would be a concern. But he's got his national championship. He's now coaching the Chargers, trying to win a Super Bowl. I don't think he's going to be back anytime soon. So... probably
he can come back. He just can't come back to like any type of official capacity.
And if he is hired during this 4 years, he will be suspended for 100% of the first season of employment.
Yeah. So that's more of the concern there. Thank you for the note there, Lee. Thank you for looking that up. I'm glad the Wi-Fi is working again in the studio. Here's the issue with all of this. So there's a lot of fans out there of some of the rivals of Michigan that are celebrating. This is their got you moment. Mm-hmm. And I've been adamant and telling people this has been going on at other schools too. Connor Stallions was caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and they're now punishing Michigan for this. In most cases, the NCAA is always reactive instead of proactive with these matters, and they try to create punishment that really never hurts the individuals during the period of time in which whatever cheating is going on. It only hurts the future players, the future coaches. But one narrative that has come out from all this, LaVar, is that Michigan had improved so much when Connor Stallions was there. It was all about Connor Stallions. And I just want to take people through the period of time coming out of COVID where, Michigan didn't play Ohio State. They had somewhat of a ho-hum year. That was an interesting year, I think, for a lot of people who were around college sports because, for example, we were going out on location and there's no fans. And it was the oddest time of being out broadcasting live from a destination where you've got cardboard cutouts in the stands.
Desolate, right.
I mean, just the weirdest type of atmosphere you could imagine. And, we talked to coaching staffs about the challenge of getting the players up. Because, whether or not people want to admit it, like the fan, the 12th man, in a lot of cases plays a factor, even helping to give you a little extra juice, maybe creating that home field advantage. But either way, it creates the difficulty that creates that home field advantage or advantage. And, that year was an interesting year because what never gets talked about enough is the staff changes that Jim Harbaugh went through in getting to where they became a team that was a national title contender. That was one element of it. The other element of it is J.J. McCarthy. I don't think he gets his due as a college quarterback for the job that he did during his time there. But I want to go back to – well, he is now, and that's what I'll kind of get to. But
no, I'm saying he's dealing in practice right now from all – reports I've seen on him. So
yeah, the fact that when you get drafted in the first round, I think that goes to show you, like, this is how the NFL feels about him as far as his talent, his leadership skills, all those tools and intangibles they're looking for. So clearly there was more to it than just, hey, it's Connor Stallions. It's this advantage they've got from all of this. I go back and look at the staff changes he made. For example, back in 2021, they bring in Mike Macdonald. Mike Macdonald, who ends up being their defensive coordinator, does an unbelievable job during his time there, so much so that he ends up getting hired as the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator after that, and then now hired as the head coach for the Seattle Seahawks. So Mike Macdonald, who then leads to Jesse Minter, that leads to, again, this defensive performance that becomes up there with the top in college football. The other thing is he moved on from Josh Gaddis. Josh Gaddis, who I felt like at times was holding back the Michigan offense. And he, brought in Sharon Moore in that 2021 offseason. Sharon Moore, who eventually now becomes the head coach, but was a co-offensive coordinator to begin with, and during his time there became a co-offensive coordinator with Matt Weiss. And they've, you've seen that, remarkable improvement, but also J.J. McCarthy coming along as well and being able to lead them to, in essence, almost an undefeated record with the exception of one game. And so as much as you want to make it about the Connor Stallions saga, the truth and the reality of it is it doesn't have really anything to do with that one thing. I mean, as we talked about before with Stallions, he wasn't a part of this program at all in the second half of last year where they played their most important games versus Penn State, versus Ohio State, into the college football playoff to win a national championship. That had nothing to do with Connor Stallions. So I'm just tired of this false narrative that's put out there about Michigan, and I'm surprised I'm defending Michigan in this case. But I'm so tired of hearing it. It's like, look, take the L's, folks. And if you think your team wasn't doing something, whether it's through recruiting or whether it's through, scouting and all this stuff, you're probably wrong. Everyone's trying to bend the rules in some way. That's just the life in college football right now. It is a very, very crazy world, the Wild Wild West, that we're all living in. I don't know how you see it, but I had to get that off my chest because I'm so tired of hearing it and seeing it on social media and all these different bloggers and whatnot.
I'm glad you got it off of your chest. I'm not that passionate about it. I will say it is intriguing to me to think that you could come to the conclusion, and that anyone could come to the conclusion that if you watch this Michigan team play, that the sign stealing was the reason why they had a competitive advantage. I mean, if you're trying to say, okay, they were in a position to put a personnel grouping out there to give them an unfair advantage, I mean, is that based off of stealing a sign? Or is that the people that are above looking down and supposed to have the personnel groupings that are coming into the game and different things like that, how they're playing? Listen, I watched in person the dismantling of one of the best defenses in college football last year, and it was a run. They ran the ball, and Penn State could not stop the run. Just couldn't stop the run. I can't attribute success, and look, people can say, well, that was post Connor Stallions or Scallions, that was post him. I don't care. If you look at that Michigan team and the run that they went on, it was run heavy and it was play defense. They had guys like Aiden Hutchinson on their teams. They had what was Rashad Berry? Was it during that time period? Like they've had some pretty phenomenal football players come off of that. They have a phenomenal player, number 2, that wears Charles's number right now. They have some phenomenal players on the defense side of the ball. Will Johnson. They've had some amazing. Corum is an amazing running back. The running back that backed him up, he's an amazing running back. Their offensive line, they shored it up through the portal. It was just, if you're going to look at it from a critical standpoint, they had a superior team, Q. They have had a superior team.
And I think there's a huge correlation between quarterbacks, and I know some people who are purists in college football hate hearing the comparison of projecting what they'll be at the NFL level. But if you have a quarterback who is either a first-round talent or can play at the NFL level, he's one of the best at college football. I think we can agree upon that. And if you look at the run, especially the recent run for Alabama, And, you go through the Bryce Young, who won a Heisman Trophy, was a first-round pick, number 1 overall pick. You go to the Mac Jones, the Tua Tagovailoa, and even Jalen Hurts, who was there for a period of time, ends up being a high second-round pick. But I think you get my point.
Superior talent. And
even Greg McElroy, who got drafted, A.J. McCarron, who got drafted. You go through the years of Bama's success, there's a correlation between the most important position in college sports, in my opinion, the quarterback, and success. So let me ask you this. When was the last time a quarterback who was recruited to Michigan got drafted?
Ooh.
Before J.J. McCarthy.
That's a good one. Ooh. Was it the kid that didn't tie his shoes?
No. I think you're talking about Alan Bowman, who, by the way, just now, I think is still actually playing. He's still quarterback for Oklahoma State. But it was Chad Henne in 2008. Dang. That is the last quarterback they have had that was recruited there and drafted. And he was a second-round pick. Now, people were going to say, well, what about Jake Rudock in 2016? Jake Rudock wasn't recruited to Michigan. He transferred there. He was originally an Iowa quarterback. And then he eventually came for his final season and got drafted in the 6th round by the Detroit Lions. But I have always said this. Michigan and their return to glory was going to have everything to do about finally getting a talented quarterback. The second they got J.J. McCarthy, who finished his high school ball at IMG Academy and is now a first-round pick, was going to give them a shot at winning a national championship, combined with the other pieces that they have. But that, to me, I don't think he had to win that job.
And he had to win that job. Correct. Somebody was who was the other guy that they were looking at kind of like it could go either way for a moment there. It wasn't just McCarthy had the job and came in as this the franchise guy. He had to win that job out. I can't recall who the other quarterback was.
Alan Bowman, who's now at Oklahoma State, did transfer in from Texas Tech. He was one of the other quarterbacks. They had a bunch of quarterbacks on their roster. But to your point, he had to win a quarterback competition.
He had to win it, yeah.
He ended up being the guy. But to the greater point is just stop with this whole thing. It was just Connor Stallions. It wasn't. They had a first-round quality drafted quarterback. They had 13 players drafted. They did a good job recruiting and developing. They made staff changes that ended up leading to Mike McDonald, who's now a head coach in the NFL, other coaches who Harbaugh took along with him to the NFL, Sharon Moore, who's become now a head coach. It didn't have just to do with Connor Stallions. This was a university that, under Jim Harbaugh, kind of found its way after COVID of what they needed to do in order to win. And so as much as we want to sit there and use the punishment that's thrown down on Jim Harbaugh as a reason for, this is the only reason they won a national championship, it's just not true. It's just not true. They were able to build this thing up to really put all their chips in that this past season. And when they needed to the most, without their head coach, without the help of Connor Stallions, they showed up the biggest in the biggest games. So please stop with the stupid conversation around it only being about Connor Stallions.